Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to Get Hit with the Truth. So today we are doing the Beterbiev versus Bivol 2 breakdown and prediction video, as they will collide in a rematch for the Undisputed Light Heavyweight Championship of the World in the main event of a February 22nd DAZN pay-per-view card titled The Last Crescendo. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So this rematch right here is for all the marbles. It's a monster rematch, and I cannot wait to see it. It is on top of the best fight card I've ever seen put together, top to bottom. And it's just exciting as hell, and it's going to be great. Now, if you haven't seen my breakdown and prediction videos before, basically I break the fight down in detail. So I talk about the fight itself first, what it means, and then I get into each fighter individually. In a fight like this, you have a champion, you have a challenger. I would start with the champion, Beterbiev, asking the same questions, and then I will ask the exact same questions of the challenger, Dmitry Bivol. At the end of the video, I will ask one final question, and then I will give my prediction on the fight. So let's jump into it. What does this fight mean? What is at stake? Well, all four major world titles, the Undisputed Light Heavyweight Championship of the world, is on the line here. They unified the belts when Beterbiev beat Bivol back in October of last year. Bivol was the longtime standing WBA champ, and Beterbiev had unified the other three titles, the WBC, IBF, and WBO belts. Beterbiev has been a world champion since 2017, and he is ready to, defend all four belts. He, took the first fight by a razor-thin majority decision in a fight where he got outlanded. And that was the first fight that one of Beterbiev's opponents made it to the final bell. He had won every fight by knockout. So now he's coming in the undefeated, defending undisputed champion, and Dmitry Bivol is the challenger coming in, trying to get revenge on Beterbiev. So that's everything that's at stake. There's multiple talks of multiple things. You have David Benavidez is pretty much next in line. You got Joshua Buatsi and Callum Smith are fighting to become the number one contender. They already have an IBF number one contender in Michael Eifert. For Dmitry Bivol, with Canelo just signing his big 4-fight deal with Turki Al-Sheikh, he's been mentioned as a potential opponent for next year in 2026 for Canelo. So a rematch could be at stake there for Dmitry Bivol. So it just, it's up to whatever happens on this night, and everything's at stake. The king of the division is at stake. Undisputed is at stake. So it's a monster rematch. Their first fight was great. These two guys are all-time great fighters. They are special fighters. That first fight was a chess match, and it was great. It was a great fight. So really looking forward to seeing this rematch right here. Again, it's on top of a monster fucking DAZN pay-per-view card. 4 world title fights, and 3 interim title fights. I mean, and just the best of the best fighting each other, and it's just topped by a great rematch right here. So can't wait to see it. So now let's get into first the champion, the reigning undisputed champion, Artur Beterbiev. Well, first let's discuss the dimensions. That's a new thing I'm doing in the breakdown videos, and the numbers. So Artur Beterbiev 21-0, 20 knockouts. Dmitry Bivol 23-1. Now they are near even in odds. I think Beterbiev is a slight favorite coming in because he won the first fight. But again, Bivol, it's near even. Bivol is 40 years old now. Beterbiev is 40 years old, where Dmitry Bivol is 34. They're almost dead even in terms of height and reach. You got Bivol is 1 inch taller, but Beterbiev has a 1 inch reach advantage. So they're pretty much even right there. So this fight, going in is just they're very, very even. So let's first start with the reigning champion, Artur Beterbiev, and break him down. So first we got to go back to the last three fights. And those date back to January of 23 when he made a mandatory defense of the three titles against WBO mandatory challenger Anthony Yarde of the United Kingdom. It was a good fight, and it was only the second fight in his career that he was behind on the cards when when he stopped his opponent. And Yarde was landing good shots, even stunned Beterbiev a couple times, but Beterbiev just kept on the grind, kept pushing, and he stopped Anthony Yarde in 8 rounds to retain the unified title at the time. Then he had an August 23 bout canceled, and but it was postponed, but then would take place 5 months later in January of 24 when he made another mandatory defense against his WBC mandatory challenger and former super middleweight champion Callum Smith. He would dominate Callum Smith from start to finish. Smith just didn't know what hit him, and Beterbiev just broke him down, dominated him, and stopped him in 7 rounds to retain the unified title again. And then, of course, the third fight took place, or he was supposed to fight Dimitri Bivol for Undisputed in June of last year, and ended up, that fight got postponed until October, where he would defeat Bivol by, in my opinion, he deserved the win because he won the championship rounds. Very, very close fight, very, very tough to judge. I think I would score it 7-5 in favor of Beterbiev. Especially since he won those last couple rounds. He was the aggressor. He was on the horse, and he was still coming forward, landing the better shots. Bivol didn't give up, though, and it was a really good ending. But Beterbiev got a very close majority decision, unifying belts, securing the biggest win of his career, and becoming undisputed light heavyweight champ. So heading into this one, we're only just over 4 months removed from that first fight. I think that could be significant on Beterbiev. But Beterbiev's hungry. He knows he wouldn't have taken this rematch. I mean, everything's at stake, but he wants to legitimize it. I think he's coming into this fight looking for the knockout this time. He wants to leave no doubt. He doesn't want this fight to go to the final bell. And if it doesn't, if he can pull off the victory and stop Bivol, then that's really going to solidify him as the absolute best without question. So yeah, he's definitely hungry coming into this one. He wants to leave no doubt, and he is a champion's champion. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does. Now, what does he need to do to defeat Dimitri Bivol in this fight? Well, per usual, he needs to be ready for 12 because he was ready for 12 against Bivol, and I think the difference between the two really played a big role. But he also needs to be in great shape for this one because this is the first time in many fights that he has come in with such a short notice in between fights. Like that he even going back his last 6 fights, they date back to March of 2021. He didn't fight until 9 months later in December. Then he didn't fight for another 6 months after that. Then it was another 6 months or 7 months actually in between fights. Then it was a year in between fights, and then it was 10 months in between, or 9 months in between fights. He doesn't have these quick turnaround fights like this, so he really needs to be in fantastic shape, ready to roll in this one and ready to go. So that's one of the keys. The other key is to just get to Bivol early and put the pressure on. I think if he can put the pressure on and land the big shots early, he might be able to bust him up and break him down and stop him in the late rounds. So I think that's the key to success for Artur Beterbiev. So can Artur Beterbiev win this fight by knockout? Dimitri Bivol, I've never really seen him hurt badly, but if anybody can beat Dimitri Bivol, it can knock him out, it's going to be Beterbiev. I do believe it is possible, but I don't know if he's going to be able to hurt him with one punch and stop him, but he does have that kind of power, and he's such a good fighter. He hits from good solid angles, setting up those perfectly timed shots that, yeah, if he's going to land one and hurt Bivol badly, he can do it. Now, can Artur Beterbiev win a decision? Well, he already did. He won a very close decision. So yeah, he can win a decision. So what's more likely for Beterbiev in this fight over Bivol? Is a knockout or a decision? Well, Bivol proved he can go 12 and take his power. So I think it's a slight favor in favor of a decision for Beterbiev because he's already gotten one. But it's close. So now, what does a victory mean for Arthur Beterbiev? Well, it means everything. He holds on to his undisputed light heavyweight title, and then he leaves no doubt about how the first fight went. So it means a lot. And that's any kind of win, even if he wins a close one. So what? It's no different than Usyk and Fury. Yeah, he beat a fellow Hall of Famer, and it was close, but he beat him twice, and that's all there is to say. It's going to be no, but if he wins more convincingly in the rematch, he really will have sealed the deal and left no doubt. So any kind of win is big because it's going to lead to only more money fights if he wants, or he can ride off into the sunset after that. So it just depends. It's up to him. But what does a loss mean for Beterbiev? It depends on how he loses. If he loses to a supreme operator like Dmitry Bivol, I don't think anybody's gonna bat an eye about Beterbiev's greatness. He's 40 years old. Bivol's 34. If he loses finally, people are gonna be like, well, he's a 40-year-old man. He lost to a great fighter. But if he gets dominated, he loses that way. Yeah, it's gonna suck. But he can retire or he can bounce back if he wants. The ball's in his court. So I really don't think a loss is going to hurt him. A loss will not hurt him as bad as a loss will hurt Dmitry Bivol in this fight. So that's what I think there. So now let's switch over to the challenger, the former longtime WBA light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol, and break him down. So we start with his last 3 fights that date back to December of 23 when he fought on the Day of Reckoning card. He hadn't fought in over a year, and he would take on Lyndon Arthur, the English-born Lyndon Arthur, and would dominate Arthur over 12 one-sided rounds. It wasn't even a fight. He just picked him apart, dominated him, scoring a workmanlike but convincing one-sided decision. He was supposed to fight Beterbiev 6 months later, or less than 6 months later, on the 5 versus 5 card in June, but that fight got postponed. He would end up fighting that night instead against a guy named undefeated contender named Malik Zenod, and he would dominate Zenod, scoring his first knockout in I think over 5 years, stopping Zenod in 6 rounds and retaining his WBA light heavyweight title. Then 4.5 months later, he got the postponed fight with Beterbiev. It was on for Undisputed. And as we have mentioned, he lost a very close majority decision in that one. Outlanded Beterbiev by 8 punches, but lost the fight by a majority decision in a very close fight. But with Turki Al-Sheikh, Turki Al-Sheikh has been very good at making decisions based off of who he thinks wins fights. And he thought Bivol won the fight. And a lot of people did. And so that's why this rematch is happening. So Bivol, I think, is very hungry. I think he's very disappointed at the first fight. I think he really believes he won the fight, like most do, like a lot of people do. And I think he's coming for blood. I think he really wants to win this fight. I think he's pumped up. And I think him being the younger guy, I think it's happening in his favor. I really do. Happening 4 months removed from the first fight. I think that works in his favor. What does he need to do to win the fight? He needs to be in great shape. He needs to be ready to fight better than he did the first time in the championship rounds. He boxed great. He was really doing a good job in that fight against a great power puncher and overall boxer in Beterbiev. He was outperforming him, in my opinion. But when they got into the late rounds, Beterbiev took over, and I think that won the fight for him. These guys are 2 special future Hall of Fame fighters going against each other. So you really have to bring your best A game, and I felt like Beterbiev outgunned him in the championship rounds, and that's what won him the fight. He needs to be ready for that this time. He needs to be ready to rock and roll. Great shape, and any mistakes he made, he needs to be able to dig deep into the gas tank. If he can do that, I think he can win this rematch. Okay, so can Dmitry Bivol win this fight by knockout? You know what? I think he can. Beterbiev can take shots. He's got a great chin. But he did feel Bivol's power. And I've always said this about Bivol. I think he more chooses to go the distance, to take less risk, kind of like the way Mayweather did. But he has, just like Mayweather, he has enough power to keep you honest. So I do believe a perfectly timed shot, accumulation of punches, if he can wear down Beterbiev, I think he can stop him. I do. Can he win a decision? Yeah, that first fight was very close. I think he's the better overall boxer. So I think he can win a decision. Now, if he beats Arthur Beterbiev, what's more likely, a knockout or a decision? Well, that has to be a decision. He's not a big power guy. Like, finishing his fights with power. So I think if he were to beat an all-time great in Arthur Beterbiev, it's more likely that he beats him by a decision. So, what does a victory mean for Dimitri Bivol? A win here over Beterbiev in a rematch avenging his only pro loss, it's bigger than his win over Canelo. It is. Canelo, that was a great win for him. That's the biggest of his career. Canelo was a pound for pound guy, but Canelo was moving up to his weight class. And I really believe if you're a real boxing fan, like deep into boxing, like me, you were not surprised that he won that fight. I picked Canelo to beat him, but I also said that Bivol could win this fight. He's a very good, very fucking special operator in there, and he outgunned Canelo. Well, Beterbiev is an all-time great, and this one is for Undisputed, where that fight wasn't. A win here to avenge that loss on such a stacked card in such a big moment, and he becomes Undisputed. It's huge. Huge for his career. Absolutely. What does another loss mean for Dimitri Bivol? What if he loses to Beterbiev? What does that mean for his career? What does that mean for him? It would be rough. That would be rough. Even if he loses a close one, because Bivol has that style that not a lot of guys want to sign up to fight him, and unless you're going to make fat money or he's got something you can take from him like a belt, he's going to be a little less attractive to some of these guys. Even the guys that are younger that want to make a name for themselves, they might stay away from a guy with a style like Bivol because Bivol is dangerous. He's a very good fighter. So I think a loss would really be devastating for him. If he loses again, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt bad, especially if it's more convincing than the first time, because the first time was razor thin. He could have called either way. He gets stopped. He loses a convincing decision. That's really going to hurt him. So now the final question, is it better for boxing if Arthur Beterbiev wins this fight and retains the undisputed title, or is it better for boxing if Dimitri Bivol wins this fight? It is tough to say, but my honest logic here is it's better if Bivol gets the victory in the rematch. And you might ask why. Well, I'll explain it. Bivol is the younger guy by 6 years. If he wins this fight, there's more of a future there in terms of what he can do, who he can fight, and everything. And it's not to say that Beterbiev can't fight into his 40s and be successful, but does he want to after that? That's the thing. If he beats Beterbiev, Canelo's not going to want to fight him. Canelo hasn't even mentioned Beterbiev's name. He wants to gain revenge on Dimitri Bivol. He doesn't care about Beterbiev. He knows that one's a stretch. But if you're Bivol, not only can you set up a potential, you have so many big fights that are there. Obviously the number one contenders. I mean, Eifert and Buatsi, not huge fights, but decent. But David Benavidez, I mean, that is a huge fight because you got the guy that beat Canelo against the guy Canelo didn't want to fight in Benavidez. That would be an interesting one. Style matchup would be great. And again, the style matchup between Benavidez and Beterbiev would be fucking badass as well. But I'm just saying there's more options for fights because you also have a potential rematch between Canelo and Beterbiev. And Bivol for Undisputed at 175, which is a big deal. So for me, I just think with Bivol winning, there's more options there. Plus, a rubber match is on the table. If he wins the rematch, you could be staring at a third fight between two future Hall of Fame great fucking fighters in Bivol and Beterbiev. But I will say this. Beterbiev, because of his knockout ratio, because of his style, because he doesn't look like he's 40 years old when he's in the ring and he fights. He still does have a future if he wants one, and it would not be bad for boxing if he wins. It's just there's less options for other major fights, I guess is what I'm saying. A rubber match with Bivol wouldn't make any sense if he wins the rematch. Canelo doesn't want to fight Beterbiev. He wants to fight Bivol in a rematch. So that takes that off the table, really for Beterbiev, the only option that makes sense would be, would be David Benavidez right now. So, and he's 40. So then he gives up all the belts potentially after a showdown with Benavidez. So again, there's just more and better options if Bivol wins the fight. So now, what is my prediction? Is Arthur Beterbiev going to retain the undisputed light heavyweight championship in this fight? Or will Dimitri Bivol become the new undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world? I picked Bivol the first time. I am picking him again. I'm going Dimitri Bivol will win this fight. I think it's going to be a close majority or unanimous decision. And I'll tell you why. I really believe that the 6-year age difference will come more into play in this fight than it did the first fight. And I'll tell you why. Beterbiev has not had the quick turnaround fights. And here's the thing. Dimitri Bivol doesn't have those as much either. But he was also coming off of actually fighting in June. And he had to turn it around in 4.5 months. Now, he has to do that again now, but I think he's ready to do that a second time. This is Beterbiev's first time doing this kind of turnaround since I can remember. You know, I go back and look at some of his other fights. Again, he hasn't done it in his last 6 fights or 7 fights if you really look at it, because there was the pandemic prior to that. But the last time that he had such a quick turnaround in between fights, you have to go all the way back to when he defeated Hot Rod in 2019 and then defeated Alexander Votzik 5.5 months later. But even that wasn't a just over 4 month thing. And you know, and that's where I land on this one right here. He didn't have a ton of quick turnaround fights, even early on in his career. There really is only a few times where he did that, and it was way early in his career. So, you know, he's 40 years old, and he's fighting just over 4 months after he just fought a fight where he had to go the full 12. I think that's going to come into play in this one. I think Bivol is going to take over in the late rounds. I think he's going to set the tone around the middle rounds and take over, and I think he will do enough to secure a decision victory and become the new undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. Now, Beterbiev could dig deep and prove that he is 40 doesn't matter, and he can do it again. He can. He's that good. But we are used to seeing him suffer injuries in between fights. You know, he's done that multiple times. He's suffered injuries and hasn't been able to fight. And I think lingering from the first fight is gonna catch up with him on this one. And I think the second half of the fight in this matchup, the rematch, will belong to Dimitri Bivol, and he'll secure the decision and become the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. But again, would not be shocked if Beterbiev knocked out Dimitri Bivol, if he figured out a way to, you know, go after him early and overwhelm him. I would not be surprised if he pulled it out. So it's going to be very interesting to see this rematch. It could go either way. It's a 50-50 fight, and I cannot wait to see how this one shakes out. So Saturday, February 22nd, main event, Riyadh season, DAZN pay-per-view, Arthur Beterbiev and Dimitri Bivol. This was the rematch this is the rematch. This is the breakdown and prediction video of that rematch, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing, and you've been hit with the truth.